So the problem is you need a collaboration with communication among various parties, and if they collude, they can actually reveal the entire secret. Well, that again is why I think we should combine that with these. And here is again a question which is not so easy to answer. We should ensure distribution of power in a consortium, and that's a hard problem. You can talk to the Energy Web Foundation or to Hedera about the complexities of building consortia. Yeah, but I think this could get us a long way. Well, in the end now, why not just ZK? ZK is very hip. I've heard a lot about it, what people expect that we will be able to do with ZK, and it is very exciting, I agree. But there are certain things that it will, as far as I understand, never be able to do. Because it's purely mathematical and non-interactive. So you might have heard about Tornado Cash and about the approaches how we could make Tornado Cash compliant. Now, the hypothesis there is that the user can provide a proof of innocence. Proof of innocence is, so, well, first, Tornado Cash is you put money in, you get money out, there is no link between the input and the output. And that's a problem for law enforcement because you can launder money that way. Proof of innocence is a way how the prover can prove how that the output doesn't originate from inputs which are on a blacklist. The problem with that is you need the consent, you need the collaboration with the individual. That means you cannot, after the fact, see if an output is legal or not. It's only once you have your suspect in custody, you can maybe get them to provide a proof of innocence. And the other thing that I talked about before, the rate limiting, is something that you cannot do with pure math. Doesn't work. There needs to be like operators in interaction to do that. So either T or MPC is able to do rate limiting. Something that I only want to touch very briefly is follow the money. So I have talked about KYC, but basically, well, if there is a hack somewhere, you have an address, you want to know where the money goes, or the compliance department of a bank gets an input and they want to know where does the money come from. So we could, and again, this is a very drafty proposal. We could say that we keep a temporary log of transactions, maybe pruned after a year, depending on the law. And law enforcement can selectively get access to the log entries per account that it applies to. So you could travel step by step incrementally through that ciphertext blob log, either from output to input or from input to output. And, well, I claim we should limit that ability to amounts which are higher than reasonably everyday amounts. Like $1,000 is pretty common to be non-controversial in that sense. Well, of course, we should limit fan out and depth of those searches somehow, but yeah, it's a possibility to counter money laundering and still protect the privacy of the majority. That's it. Thank you. I'm open to questions. Don't be shy. There's a mic.
Here.
Coming.
For the human side of it, right? As the judges happen, and you talked about, rate limiting. How many other any other ideas on how to effectively stop the collusion of full government to overreach?
I think this will be a societal discussion that we will need to have. Is it really just judges, or should it rather be a jury? Should it be sortium, just like a lottery of authority? Might not. I mean, I think this could be very interesting approaches. So, yeah, I guess there are plenty of solutions that I mean, you find a lot of them in the history of democracy itself, and I think, yeah, maybe we can revisit some of them and just implement the execution of those ideas on chain. Yeah, but I can't really give you a good answer to that. It's kind of out of our scope. I mean, what I care about is whatever society comes up with requirements, I just want to show that it is possible to implement them. It's not an either or. It's not an all or nothing. Yeah. Please, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting ideas. I feel they're very futuristic, as I think that we have governments that don't understand and therefore not trust technology. And on the other hand, we have a technological community that doesn't trust the state. So I have the feeling that there's a lot of work to do on both sides to learn to understand it. And at the same time, I have the feeling when you talk about opening up financial data, not having anonymity in certain technologies and backdoors for governments, which is undisputedly something that governments would want. I have the feeling it doesn't really fit together because the world of technology has the financial data public anyway. So crypto is public. It's just not public in having a pointer to a certain person, but you do have all the financial transaction public, except for in a mixer. But even if you use a mixer, if you want, you can retrieve all these data, and then you can, if you want proof afterwards, this was my one account and these other 5 other accounts. So I think it's very worthy to try to match those two worlds in compliant technologies, but I see that we are somehow really far away because the ideas of what do we want and what do we find right are very far apart. Is this, in your mind, something that you just find interesting and want to throw in the room and hope that you want that you convince people to open themselves up, depending on where they come from, to the other side? Or is that something where you see that you're already working with some governmental organizations, or sorry for being long, but I would really be interested in how you see that.
Yeah, but I'll start at the end with your question. So yes and yes. I'm likely not making friends with my statements, because for one side I'm too lax, for the other side I'm too, dogmatic. We are actively working to exactly change what you said about the current state of blockchains, right? So everything is public. Pseudonymous is, in my understanding, worthless, absolutely worthless, because the data is there forever. It will be linkable. Mixers just make it harder to link the data, but eventually the link will be there. So that's what we at Integrity are working on, to build a way how we can transfer funds, especially everyday amounts, payments, point of sale, without leaving traces at all. So anonymity instead of pseudonymity. On the other side of your question, are we proactively talking to government? No, we aren't. And I very much understand your statement. I'm not sure if it's ignorance or because they don't understand the tech. I was part of a standardization body very briefly, and I think I understand that if you write something into a law, there's a lot of inertia. And if passing a law takes longer than the development cycles of the technologies that are evolving, then you are in kind of a dilemma. Then you're unfortunately always standardizing outdated technology. So I have some understanding for that, but still, this is kind of, my attempt to push for more modern technology. Does that answer your? Okay. Please.
Hi. Well, you were talking about maximize privacy for the majority. So I was wondering if the minority would be the people that it's being prosecuted or involved in legal processes, or have you mapped other kind of people that maybe will be out of this idea?
So in the assumptions of my talk, it's basically accepting that the state takes this decision. Well, this assumes a healthy state, right? And that's why I said it's kind of a vulnerable position I'm in, suggesting such a compromise, because I'm well aware that this monopoly of violence is abused in the world, and I have no answer to that to offer, unfortunately.
Hello. Thanks a lot for your talk. I really appreciate your take on collaboration, because there are so many privacy maxes, like, oh no, government is bad, we will do anything like super anonymous, whatever, but it doesn't seem like a working thing. So my question, how do you see this possible interconnection? Because it seems like two really different agents, as the person there said before. So government wants one thing, like transparency. We want be anonymous. So
yes,
there are two questions in one, actually. So first, how can we people who kind of fight for privacy have more agency in communicating and advocating for privacy in terms of legislation? And where do you see this interconnection? How can we be friends in the end?
Yes. Yeah, I think I get your question. So how can we have more agency? I think we really need to actively protest the current trend of surveillance. I actually, well, when I started this endeavor, my enemy was rather big tech, and kind of still is, but while I've been working in the space. Increasingly, I became worried about how the states use their power. Also where I live, in Switzerland. So I think we need to like really counter. We need to educate, I think, and we need to just really try to convince politicians to understand that privacy does matter, and especially, and that might talk to your point. What they might underestimate is, well, they seem to think that if they have a backdoor, that they can control everything, but that this backdoor will only have legitimate use. What they don't understand is that IT security is never complete. So this backdoor will be abused, if not by the state, then by someone who can exploit the backdoor. And I think that's very much underappreciated in politics. When it comes to what can we do to shape the legislation, I think, well, what I try to do in this talk is put myself in the position of the regulator, understand what are the requirements, what do we really need, what is the minimum set of features of a system that we need to enforce law. And, well, hopefully this, can evolve to law. Or be a tiny step on the road. Any questions left? Yeah, please. Yep, the microphone is coming.
Thank you. I was just thinking, because you previously also said that the lawmaking process is very long, and technological cycle also is happening while that's moving on. And I was thinking, with laws, the way you normally do laws, you don't regulate the details, but you go on a certain abstraction level. And when you look at GDPR, for example, they claimed that they wanted to make it technology neutral. And while they were doing it, they were thinking about cloud computing, platforms, whatever they had known. And at the same time, Bitcoin was invented and wasn't in their sight. So everything that they regulated on that abstract level was doing something completely different than the new emerging decentralized technologies are still now doing, and GDPR is still at the same thing. Do you see that ever there's going to be an abstraction level that could cover even technology that does not exist yet, so that really the law can be applied to new technology? Because we all agree that we say code is law, but we mean in a certain environment, code executes like law, but law is something different, more abstract, and always in between the people who were acting. And it would be beneficial, because the governments normally don't understand technology until they have seen it, which takes another 10 years after it was invented. But if we would come to an abstraction level in regulation that would cover that, that could potentially solve this problem. Do you see that, or? Well,
I'm not exactly sure that GDPR, for example, is overly specific in that sense. So I think it doesn't only apply to technology. We always try, or parliaments try to write laws in such a way that there is still room for interpretation, which needs to be room for technical progress, for example. But I found it very interesting what the keynote speaker said this morning, that, and this is very relevant for GDPR, that we should get beyond this consent model of control over data. Because if you look at the cookie banners, you give your consent, but it's not informed consent, really. What GDPR protects, unfortunately, ends up protecting the enterprises and not the individual. Because it just says, well, the enterprise can basically do whatever they want / need to do for their business. And if that involves profiling, then GDPR is fine. You know, so it's basically, I think it's the wrong approach if it's actually the individual that we care about. I still, in a certain sense, welcome that the data protection law or the direction, you know, but I'm not sure if the outcome is what we actually wanted.